Hey everyone, welcome back to all my listeners. This is season 15, episode 16. Today is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. My name is Sonal Patel, and this is the Paint the Medical Picture podcast series. All right, you guys, so this is going to be a short and sweet episode for the month of August. So I'm going to be featuring my spotlight once again on another awareness month. August is National Wellness Month. And in my trusty tip, I'm going to be focusing on the latest tip and update that CGS provided regarding the TPE and appeals process. And I'm going to go ahead and round out and close out today's episode with another remarkable quote on hopes and aspirations by William Shakespeare. All right, you guys, let's get into it. So in today's Newsworthy, I wanted to focus on August as National Wellness Month. In 2018, Live Love Spa dedicated August as National Wellness Month to celebrate and inspire others to commit to their self-care. National Wellness Month encourages people to prioritize self-care. Now, did you know a little bit more about the timeline, the history of the importance of self-care? So way back in the 3rd century, there were the Roman baths. Those original wellness spas, the Roman baths, were the original wellness spas. Now, bathing was a source of health, luxury, entertainment, and social gatherings. Let's fast forward to the 5th century. Yoga. Yoga was developed by the Indus-Saraswati civilization in northern India over 5,000 years ago. Then, moving forward even more, in 1948, the WHO redefines health. Now, the World Health Organization, WHO, defines health as, quote, a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity, end quote. This set the stage for the broader understanding of wellness. And finally, in the year 2018, National Wellness Month was developed. In 2018, Live Love Spa declares August as National Wellness Month, encouraging people to take time for self-care. Today, the concept of self-care encompasses various practices aimed at holistic well-being, including physical exercise, healthy eating, mindfulness, stress reduction techniques, and more. Self-care and wellness is a personal and subjective concept, but the underlying idea of taking deliberate actions to care for oneself physically, mentally, and emotionally remains central. And now it's time for my best practice tips in Trusty Tip. Now, I know I haven't talked a lot about this particular MAC in the nation, and that is the Solarian Group Company, or CGS. They are a Part B MAC for states like Ohio and Kentucky. Now, they issued a wonderful tip on the Targeted Probe and Educate program. I love this TPE program, but they wanted to focus specifically on the fact about their appeals process. So I think folks in this region are not performing their due diligence and conducting these appeals in a timely process. So just because folks are undergoing a Targeted Probe and Educate at their practice, at their organization, you absolutely still have the right to appeal within the MAC's timeline. And so I wanted to go over that, their TPE and appeals processes tip. So it says, quote, as a reminder, the appeals process is unchanged under the Targeted Probe and Educate TPE process. The time limit for filing a redetermination, which is called the first level appeal request, is 120 days from the remittance advice receipt date. Providers under a TPE review should not wait until after the post-probe education session to appeal TPE claim determinations, end quote. So there you go. They say it right there. Folks in this region are probably confused and thinking they need to wait until after they receive that education from that nurse reviewer at the TPE function. So I've undergone quite a few TPEs with practices, and yes, there is a lot of confusion, and I'm very happy that this particular MAC put out their tip that absolutely you have appeals and they explain the appeals process. That first level of appeal is the redetermination. And of course, you can follow all of those strict rules and guidelines under the Claims Processing Manual, the publication 100-04, Chapter 29, Appeals and Claims Decisions. Now, the tip goes on and talks about the facts that CMS Medicare Part A and Part B appeals process. Physicians, suppliers, and beneficiaries have the right to appeal claim determinations made by MACs. The purpose of the appeals process is to ensure the correct adjudication of claims. Appeals activities conducted by MACs are governed by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the CMS. As a MAC, CGS handles the first level of appeal, the redetermination requests. There are 5 levels of appeal. Now, the tip sheet goes over the fact that the time limit for filing request is 120 days from the date of receipt of the notice of the initial determination. Now, there is no monetary threshold to be met, so absolutely none. And they also go over providing helpful tips. So always submit the appeal form as the top document in the appeal submission for faster processing. Appellants can submit any and all supporting documentation with their appeal. Legal briefs can be submitted, but are not necessary for the appeal review and do not increase the likelihood of a favorable outcome. And then specifically as of July 8th of 2019, CMS no longer requires a signature on an appeal form. CGS has 60 days to process an appeal. Do not submit a duplicate appeal if a prior request has been submitted. Now, if you're a provider, you can definitely sign up to receive your redetermination notices on the CGS portal. Now, they also provide a terrific checklist, in my opinion. This is very good when you are trying to gather all of that documentation. So they have a wonderful thing on their webpage. So make sure you bookmark it if you're in this region, if this happens to be your MAC at Ohio or Kentucky, or perhaps some other states fall into this jurisdiction as well. So the redetermination submission checklist includes the fact that, of course, you have to have the beneficiary's name, the procedure codes, the beneficiary's Medicare health insurance number, that MBI number, of course, that date of service, and the requester's name. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list that they provide, but definitely for entities like when you are submitting redeterminations for your ambulance types of claims. The required documentation should include a run sheet or a run report, as well as that certification of medical necessity, that CMN, and finally that physician certification statement, that PCS. And then, of course, what I love is for the work that I do is for that E&M, those evaluation and management, either at the inpatient space or the outpatient space. And that required documentation for claims like that include supportive documentation that has the history and physical, the office notes, the progress notes, the critical care notes, the emergency department notes, the admission summaries, the consultation notes, the discharge summaries, same group or multiple physicians, as well as those histories and physicals and progress notes from both or all physicians that are involved. And then, of course, I also work with a lot of laboratories and radiologists. So if those claims are involved, supportive documentation is going to include laboratory and pathology reports, that radiology report and scan reports, as well as the services completed by multiple physicians on the same day must have all physician reports. And then the checklist goes on into if you're a provider for physical or occupational therapies, all of the documentation requirements that you need there, as well as in the chiropractic space, which I know I've talked about here on the podcast before, as well as for your SNFs, your skilled nursing visits. All of the laundry list of items that you need for that particular space include physician's admission history, physical notes, consultation reports, hospital discharge summaries, progress notes, rehab records, which include the physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech language therapy as applicable. So again, that laundry list is applicable for SNFs. And then, of course, for any of your surgical types of claims, you have to include supportive documentation involving surgical and evaluation notes. Of course, those operative reports are a must, as well as anesthesia records. So it's a wonderful tip sheet. So if you happen to be in this region of CGS, definitely look this up on their webpage. And then also I wanted to do a quick scan, a quick review for my audience of what the current TPE status is for this region. So the current medical review activity log for CGS includes all of these things that are still currently active. They are not closed out yet. So TPE items, so targeted probe and educate items that are under review actively right now for CGS include annual wellness visits, diagnostic imaging, drugs and biologicals, cataract removals, evaluation and management services. Yes, they're still looking at all of the new patient and outpatient, all of the new outpatient services, as well as the established outpatient office visit services for the targeted probe and educate. They're also looking at a variety of lab tests. They're also looking at nail debridements. They're also looking at ophthalmology services actively. They're also looking at psychiatry actively, spinal pain management actively, as well as therapy services. So they are still undergoing multiple TPEs in this particular region. So I really wanted my audience to be aware of the fact that the appeals process is still a must during the targeted probe and educate process. And finally, I focus season 15 Spark on hopes and aspirations. I want this 15th season Spark to be filled with our world's thought leaders, writers, artists, philosophers, everyone who inspires us with their statements involving hopes and aspirations. So in this week's inspiring quote in Spark is from William Shakespeare. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. Absolutely true, right? This quote reminds us that we all have a purpose. While we're here on earth, we know that hope fuels us. It is the spark that keeps us going. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. I'm happy William Shakespeare's spark still burns brightly and continues to inspire so very many. All right, you guys, that wraps up today's episode. Now, I hope you got a lot out of this short and sweet episode. For this almost last week in August, I wanted to provide an update on the TPE process. I know multiple areas of the country send in a lot of questions to me as a consultant on what to do in this rather complex process, right? So CGS provided a great tip on their webpage regarding the fact that, yes, you definitely have the right to perform your first level appeal during your TPE process. You don't have to wait until that post-education process happens. That's a little late. So they are warning and advising everybody that you can definitely go ahead and brush up on the appeals level processes. And I hope this was a good segment for the audience. So I hope you guys are going to be enjoying taking time to celebrate National Wellness Month as well. I do talk about decompressing, de-stressing, jumping in those pools, taking that vacation, doing whatever you can to really embrace your own physical and mental well-being every single week. Because I know we all lead very busy, stressful lives. A lot of us have jobs that impact a lot of people, and that can cause a lot of undue stress on ourselves. So definitely take the time. Let me know what you're going to be up to this upcoming weekend. Hopefully something fun and exciting. So anyways, you guys, I will be back next week again for the last week of the month. I'll be highlighting the latest fraud, waste, and abuse cases for the entire month of August and what I find to be exciting and important and newsworthy. So I'll put the spotlight on those next week. All right, you guys, thank you so much for listening on today's episode. And I hope every week with me brings you closer to helping your providers paint a masterpiece. See you next Wednesday.